Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX with me, Devika Devan. On the 27th of December, radicals set Hindu homes ablaze in Bangladesh's Pirojpur district. The horror didn't stop there. Eyewitnesses have said Palash Kanti Saha was locked inside his own home before it was burned down. This isn't an isolated incident. Just 24 hours earlier, 5 more Hindu homes were reduced to ashes in near West Dumuritala. We all remember the lynching of Tipu Chandra Das and Amrit Mondal. Both of them were Bangladeshi nationals murdered in a targeted attack driven by religious intolerance against Hindus. It was a display of utter cruelty and inhumanity. Despite the mounting evidence, the Bangladeshi Foreign Ministry continues to push a narrative of denial. They have dismissed India's grave concerns over the targeting of minorities as quote-unquote exaggerated and misleading. Bangladesh has accused India of misrepresenting these incidents as religious persecution. But the question remains, how do we protect minorities in Bangladesh who now have to fear for their lives every single day? How do we convince Bangladesh under a Muhammad Yunus that Mr. Yunus, minorities in your country are not safe, that this is in fact targeted religious hate? I take that conversation forward with Ambassador Veena Sikri, also with us Major Sudhakarji. We have with us Sumit Peer and Rashmi Samant as well. Rashmi, I want to begin this conversation with you today because you've lived abroad and you've also been in an environment where I'm sure a lot of people were trying to somewhere convince themselves and others that no, there is no racism, there is no hate on the basis of religion, there is no hate on the basis of identity. So when one does find themselves in a situation where the current government, interim government of Bangladesh is in complete denial, and obviously there is no government that really comes out and says, yes, there is religious hate in our country, that there are targeted attacks happening in our country. No country actually really does that. But now that we are in this situation where Hindus are being targeted in Bangladesh, what are your thoughts on how do we now take this forward with a larger global community? How do we then shed light really on what's happening?
Well, Devika, firstly, I think you cannot wake people up who are pretending to be asleep. And that's exactly the situation with the Bangladeshi regime. They know very well what's going on in their own country. And somehow it is, end of the day, it is institutionally enabled as well. We know during the Pujo riots, during the Durga Puja riots, when Hindus were also falsely accused of blasphemism, we saw how the police also aided the rioting mob in targeting Hindu homes and killing Hindus and burning down their homes and places of business. So I think it is an open truth within the Bangladeshi society that they know very well what is going on with the religious minority, and they just choose to turn a blind eye. Under such mounting, difficulties for the Hindu community in Bangladesh, I think the solution now lies in the global Hindu community and its capacity to lobby its government to, intervene in this case. The Hindu population does represent a huge minority in the Indian subcontinent, in India specifically. So it is up to the Hindus, the different social groups, to actually pressurize the government in order to intervene. It is the role of affluent Hindus in America to petition their members of Congress to intervene, to make a statement of support. It is up to influential Hindus in the United Kingdom to petition their members of parliament to raise this issue in the British Parliament, and so on. I think, Devika, end of the day, we're all here for ourselves, and every other community is doing exactly that. They are petitioning for whatever is the best possible outcome for them. In the United Kingdom, only today, Ala Abdel Fattah was brought back and he was welcomed by Keir Starmer. When you have tweets of that man saying stuff like, genocidal things very openly. So what I've realized from my own personal journey and from observing things around is that pressure groups work. Pressure groups were the ones that were successful in giving platforms to terrorists, be it in India or abroad. Yasin Malik was able to meet Manmohan Singh because there were pressure groups in social societies that encouraged that. So, at the same time, when it's a humanitarian issue, the Hindus have to come together, pressurize their governments in different parts of the world to come together and raise this issue. Otherwise, Bangladesh, it was Pakistan yesterday, it was Afghanistan the day before that, it's Bangladesh today, and this problem will knock on our doors very soon because demographic change is happening around the world, and the hatred against Hindus as the infidels is a fundamental, belief of this demographic change. So, with these mounting challenges across the world, it is very essential for every Hindu to, put out a voice, if not for themselves, then for their future selves, so that they are not trapped in a country and an administration where they are persecuted in a fashion and manner that is institutionally enabled.
All right, let me bring in Major Sudhakar ji then on that note. Major Sudhakar ji, when we talk about creating pressure, as far as the Indian government is concerned and as far as other authorities are concerned, what are your thoughts on that? How does one create pressure? And secondly, do you believe that the Indian government currently wants to really do anything about the situation beyond just raising it between our embassies and beyond just raising it for stray incidents here and there?
Devika, good evening. Thank you for inviting me for your show, and compliments to my distinguished co-panelists. Very important question. Two subparts in your question. One is what pressure we can put on Bangladesh. Second, will pressure work? Secondly, what government of India should do. If you have time, just allow me to dialect a couple of issues. So we need to keep in mind as to what the situation is, where is the problem. Identification of the problem is the biggest problem in the world today, or the planet. It has always been, it will always be. Once you correctly identify the problem, then generation of option and making alternate options as course of action will be very easy. Now, what is the problem? We need to understand in the larger perspective. There are multiple things which are happening simultaneously. One of the things that we are missing, the woods for the trees, is that there is a gradual expansion of sphere of influence of Muslim Brotherhood, which nobody is talking. Took birth in 1928, if I respect my memory, in Egypt, and by it has fanned out. The GCC countries have banned this particular organization, majority of the Arabic countries. It has found its new home and shelter and sanctuary in Europe today. It is being promoted and encouraged to proliferate its dominance and its activities. And down towards the South Asian subcontinent, we find it is gradually penetrating into an ecosystem which nobody seems to be talking about. The beginning of jihad or beginning of Sharia law has got triggered from Muslim Brotherhood. This is my take. I may be wrong with limited research that I have done. This is one point. Along with this point, which I wish to dilate, is that we need to be careful about Turkey and Qatar. Qatar is playing a very vital role in providing finance, and Turkey, taking the help of Qatar, is trying to be the leader amongst the Ummahs, or the contestation is taking place between Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Turkey is trying to play a very important role. It has found a new home. Why is it actually interested in, let's say, Bangladesh? There is a larger concept of Ummah domination, and it is aligning with the objective of forces, inimical jihadi forces. That is the ISIS I'm talking of. ISIS tried its best to have a global caliphate between 2014 and 2019. It failed miserably and came hand in gloves with ISI, started creating regional caliphate. Now it is looking at Bangladesh to develop that into the epicenter of new terrorism in the world, with an aim to extend the caliphate across South Asia, right up to New Zealand and what we saw recently in the Bondi beach, the iconic beach that we talk of. This is one thing I wanted to highlight. We need to be very mindful of the fact their basic aim is to radicalize, their basic aim is to promote terrorism and carry out Firani attack. Their basic aim is to destabilize India. Basic aim is to retard the growth of India. This has to be kept in mind. Second point that I wish to highlight, in any such kind of challenges, there is a spectrum of activity: contain, counter, contest. When you talk about contain, counter, contest, it willy-nilly falls into a paradigm of short-term, medium-term, long-term. There has to be a long-term strategy to deal with a situation. Bangladesh can no longer be called as a backyard. Once upon a time, it used to be an integral part of India, undivided British India Empire. I think as a military man, time has come. We need to draw the red line and take the leadership there in Bangladesh. Now or never, stop this damn thing. Otherwise, don't blame India. Third point I wish to highlight is there is an issue related to global, regional, and national paradigms. We need to identify which are the global elements. In global element, I personally feel that the CIA is deeply involved. America is trying to derive a leverage, put pressure on India to achieve its short-term and medium and long-term objectives. And regionally, I would say that Pakistan, Bangladesh, and China have come together. If you take your mind back to 19th of June 2025, on the sideline of the mega event which was taking place in Kunming, the foreign ministry of all the three countries, their officials, senior officials, they had a meeting on the camouflage of economic kind of alliance or grouping. But we all know, I have been calling it as a devil's triangle. We need to be very careful, and they will further debilitate the situation in Bangladesh. And last point that I would answer your question is pressure. Will pressure work? Bangladesh is at a very critical juncture. It is threatening our Siliguri corridor. It is threatening our seven sisters of Northeast, threatening our border states of West Bengal is going to go in for elections in March, April. And I am getting inputs that small teams of 4 to 5 people, jihadis, maybe Rohingya Brotherhood, maybe Lashkar-e-Taiba, maybe Jaish-e-Mohammed, they have come across the fencing into West Bengal. They are planning for a serial blast. So we need to be very careful. Siliguri corridor may be choked. It is under threat. So therefore, will pressure work? So there are multi-pronged approach which actually dictates or demands that we need to address it in a whole of nation approach where media will play its role, where the accountability of the leadership in Bangladesh, time has come. We need to sit one-on-one, tell this man, you better mend your ways, otherwise you are crossing the red line. Will do X, Y, B, C, D. Now, what is this A, B, C, D government that is the last point you have asked me. Is India, will it be correct on India to send its army as a last option? I don't think so. There are many leverages. There are 54 rivers which are flowing down from India to Bangladesh. Water is a very important leverage. Power supply is another leverage. We have the power coming from Nepal, transiting through India into Bangladesh. We have the trade. India is the largest trading partner of Bangladesh. We supply about 37 to 40% of cotton, one of the unique quality of cotton for the textile industry. And we give transit facilities. Also, you talk about Bhutan. Bhutan has been providing very cheap rate of power supply into Bangladesh passing through India. So these are the couple of leverages that we can actually think of when you want to put pressure before you go in for the kinetic component. When it comes to kinetic component, always try the hybrid method. Hybrid is you have cyber, you have electromagnetic, you have space. Try out all the methods. Prevention is better than cure. We need to actually choke them and check them. When you talk about choking them, the financial flow coming into Bangladesh for sustaining these kind of activities is the primary thing that my mind goes to. There are many other issues, but keeping in time being limited at your level, I would actually finish it out, maybe second round, if you give a chance. I have a few value-added information and suggestion also. Back to you, Devi.
All right. I'll bring Ambassador Veena Sikri quickly into the conversation as well. Ambassador Sikri, I want to understand from your perspective as well, ma'am. As far as diplomacy is now concerned, what really become the options before India? Because there's alarming information that's coming in. We're learning not just about direct attacks, but as Major Sudhakar ji said, a lot of us are getting some very alarming information coming in from Bangladesh. So are we now just going to wait and watch for the elections and and see how do we develop a relationship with the new government that comes in? Or is there something that we need to start at this very moment?
No, this situation is very serious, and I think the attacks on the minorities, all the minorities, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Sufis and the Ahmadiyyas, any kind, all the the Muslim and non-Muslim minorities. This is nothing that can wait for elections. I think this is something that has to be taken up immediately as these events happen, because they are barbaric, they are inhuman, they have no place in the 21st century for these events, and I think they have continued far too long, because actually right from the 5th of August 2024, when Sheikh Hasina's plane left Dhaka, from that very moment, the focus of attacks has been on the minority communities. There were also, of course, attacks on the Awami League, the Sheikh Mujib statues, and anything to do with the Awami League. In short, they're trying to wipe out the memory of the 1971 Liberation War. And this in itself, is something that India cherishes, because India and Bangladesh have shared values on this point. We both are pluralistic societies, we both share a strong civilization heritage, and events like this have no place in any society like this. And whenever it happens, there should immediately be action taken, there should be investigation, there should be judicial action, and the perpetrators must be given full, the full legal punishment for the audacity and absolutely horrendousness of the crime they are committing. But nothing of this kind has happened in Bangladesh. In fact, there is complete denial. And Mohammed Yunus, when he travels abroad and he's asked by people, all he does is flips his hand and says this is fake news from India. So I think that I think this needs to be tackled very strongly. We do know, for example, that in the beginning, when these attacks happened last July, August, September, till now about 2,900 attacks of this kind have happened for the minorities. And in fact, our Ministry of External Affairs says so clearly. And we do know that all the minorities, they said, look, we are not leaving Bangladesh, because the effort was to push them out. The effort was to establish, Sharia law, caliphate, extremist Islamist state in Bangladesh. That effort is still on. But the minorities said, we are not leaving. We are citizens of this country. We want our rights. And when they were trying to get their rights, and Chinmoy Das, who was one of the organizers, he was thrown into jail, and he's there for more than 1 year, without any trial, without any FIR, without any charges, no bail, nothing. And there are many like that. The media has also been completely muzzled, and many journalists are in jail. Boardrooms have been taken over. So I think there is a great deal to be done in terms of publicizing it, even in our own media, because sometimes, the correct picture does not emerge. And also in the foreign media, for example, if you see the New York Times story on the lynching of Deepu Chandra Das, it was absolutely unbelievable. They didn't want to talk about extremism, they didn't want to mention anything. It was like wrapped in cotton wool and minimized as though it's nothing much, and don't worry, these things happen elsewhere, and so on and so forth. So I think that when people are being so callous in their coverage of these inhuman attacks, we have to also bring the facts before the global community. I know that there are a lot of people from the Bangladesh diaspora who have worked on these events, and they've tabulated them, recorded them, they've even presented them in some human rights meetings. But by the very nature of this regime change operation, it is not a constitutional government, it's not a legal government, they have no mandate. They're trying to do reforms of which there is no mandate at all. So I think all these things that they're brought out together, then the regime in Bangladesh has to be forced to realize that they cannot continue with this. And any kind of a laxity in taking it up strongly and very actively and dynamically within Bangladesh, with the Bangladesh regime, helping the victims as much as possible, taking this up globally at all the right forums, regional and international. So there's a lot of work to be done on this, because I don't think we can leave, this, you can imagine, well over 1 crore of people 1.5 crore or more. And look at the way they are suffering. And what's coming in the papers is not even 1/10 of what is actually happening there. Because, for example, I heard from Khulna recently that in the river there, Shiksha River, there were about 70 bodies found there, and nobody's bothered to investigate. Whose are these bodies? Who threw them there? What happened? And the villagers are living in such fear and such fright. They feel they have no recourse. They feel there's nobody to listen to them. And when Sheikh Hasina makes, she's been given some interviews and so on, and talking about the atrocities of minorities, then they say, oh, why is she talking while sitting in India? But Tariq Rahman, who's just gone back to Bangladesh after 17 years, he hasn't said a word about the attacks on minorities. He's made some general statements saying, oh, everybody should walk together, everybody should be together. But he hasn't said a word condemning the attacks on minorities. So I think it's the people of Bangladesh whose conscience needs to be roused. It's the people of Bangladesh who need to be also brought to their senses on this. And I think it's a huge task that we have. Our spokesman, the Ministry of External Affairs, is doing so. They're making very strong statements, but I think maybe even more now needs to be done to help these hapless group, such a large group but completely helpless in Bangladesh.
Okay, all right. Sumit, I want to bring you in as well and understand from you, in your perspective. I mean, the situation, Sumit, at this point in time is so chaotic, and one does feel slightly helpless while we're sitting here in India and we listen and we hear of these visual news coming in, and we see these visuals on a daily basis of Hindus under attack. But of course, the world has turned a blind eye, Sumit, and we should not be expecting the world to intervene. I mean, the world has decided, it seems, world leaders globally have decided that it's really not their problem if it's not happening in their own country. And maybe that's the way forward. But if that's the way forward, what are we going to do sitting in India to protect Hindus in other parts of the world and right now in Bangladesh?
Thank you very much for having me on your show, Devika ji. You are absolutely right. The situation is pretty bad and it is deteriorating at a much faster pace and rate than we can imagine of. We have a few months window. After that, this country is straightway going to Afghanistan. I'll tell you why. In Pakistan, you have a strong army which can hold mullahs, jihadis, terrorists, politicians, and all together. There is an anchor called Pakistani army which can still hold them together. Here, there is no anchor like that. Wakrul Zaman is not the person who can hold everybody. That's point number one. Point number two is that, you see, the world is looking at us. The Asian Power Index rates us number 3 most strongest country in the world and a superpower with the 3rd most powerful military. Now, if these tiny mini jihadis from Bangladesh are literally going and slaughtering Hindus in broad daylight and sending a message to us, what is the whole idea? If you look at the recent media, there are things in the media which we all read. Now, I'm not even quoting sources. The Bangladeshi Hindus are worried after Rahman has landed there. They are saying that this man is much more dangerous. It's a matter of time. If he wins the election, there'll be 100% state-sponsored genocide against the Hindus. They are going to finish us all, and that will happen exactly under the watchful eye of Rahman, because you see, Rahman his contestant is Jamaat, and the so-called Ladka party, NCP, is thinking of tying up either with Jamaat or NCP. Basically, they were all eki thali ke chatte batte the. The boys or the Ladka gang which was there was the student wing of Jamaat, which was given a different color and shade. When it comes to election, they are saying we'll only contest 30 seats, that is 10% of 300 seats, and we'll have a tie-up with Jamaat, and Jamaat is giving the 1.5 crore taka to contest 1 seat, and all the 270 seats which they will not be contesting, they will support Jamaat or BNP, of which they will again get the money. The people who were telling you we are alternate to Sheikh Hasina, her government is corrupt and she doesn't know how to rule Bangladesh, now they are going and sitting in the lap of Jamaat or BNP to do it. Now imagine a situation, you will have BNP, you will have Jamaat, and you will have NCP coming together. They will swallow the election completely together. You will say to the world, look, election happened. These are the people who got elected, because Awami League is not into the picture, so Sheikh Hasina cannot will. And the Bangladeshi Hindu is telling you, sir, please open your border, because we don't have the ways or means of coming out. And who are these Hindus? They are the poorest of poor, Devika. They are the Dalits. Thanks to that Jagannath Mandal, who left Hindus there, who became the minister in Pakistan and came and died a refugee's life in Calcutta. But he kind of put our Dalit brothers there. He let these Hindus be there, who are very weak economically. They don't have a way to run. So now the call is very simple. It's a couple of months before it becomes Afghanistan, then nothing can be done. And if you look at this Rahman, even if he wins the election, it's a Hamid Karzai moment. There will be 4 or 5 years of something here and there. Ultimately, jihadis will come together and they will take over the things. Now, what are our options? Our options are pretty simple. The world is watching us. 3 Americans got killed. America went and bombed 100 sites in Syria. When Trump goes and seizes Venezuela, takes their tanker, says, pay me money, I'll release your tail. He seizes 2 Chinese tankers. The American troops intercept a ship going from China to Iran and put all the contagious cargo into the Indian Ocean. The special forces intercept that. Now, if that is what the name of the game is, look what Israel is doing. Our options are pretty clear. Once we use all the leverages we have, they work. Otherwise, practical options, either cut a Hindu Desh, that is my first option, and take care of all your Siliguri corridor and all for good. It will be Hindu Desh whom we will be bordering with. Move the Hindus there. The Bangladeshi Hindu cannot come out with land and everything. Why? Where is it written that Bangladesh only belongs to Muslims? Why should Bangladeshi Hindu be a refugee? If you don't want him, you want to make a Sharia, you want to make a Caliphate, whatever you want to make, go and do it. Let us give our Hindu Desh. It will be like a Bhutan under the control of India at a different entity, a different state. But Hindus and all the minorities, when I say Hindus, I mean Sikhs, I mean Jain, I mean Bodh, and I mean Parsis put together. I'm not singling out Hindus, I mean all these 5 sects together. Give them there, keep them the land, keep them safe, and that is one way out. Else, there'll be no other option, because if the imminent genocide happens, who will be responsible? Imagine if 20,000-30,000 Hindus get slaughtered tomorrow. It is a very strong possibility it may happen, because all the jihadis are running the show. So it happened once in Kashmir, we could not do anything. It happened in Kairana. Are we waiting another disaster to happen in Bangladesh? And what is the guarantee today? A lot of my sources are telling me they are planning a Benghazi kind style attack. What if a Benghazi style attack happens? Who will guarantee me today there will be no Benghazi? Can you trust that, Yunus? As per Sheikh Hasina's interview today, all the jihadis which were in Bangladeshi prisons were let out by Yunus. All the jihadis who were supposed to face the gallows some of them are ministers in Yunus's government. And today Yunus is not running the jihadis are running the Yunus. And now let me put the one question, let me end once for all the discussion of Hadi. NCP, the complete Ladka gang, is contesting 30 seats. What did Hadi tell? I want to contest 8 seats on my own. The game plan was to Islamize the Bangladesh, let NCP and the Jamaat and the BNP take over everything. Now imagine if all boys like Hadi start coming out and start contesting 8 seats, then the game is over. Or look at Umar Hadi's statement. Mera bhai na kisi sarkar se darta tha na agency. Which was the sarkar? Sarkar was Yunus. And which was the agency? Agency was ISI. ISI orchestrated the kill. ISI gave the orders to kill because they only wanted these so-called boys to only contest 30% seats. That is 10% of the total seats available. So they don't want them to be a big power house. That was the big game. So after this revelation, after NCP begging Jamaat and BNP for 30 seats, doesn't that tell you so-called alternates, so-called Gen Z, so-called revolutionaries are nobody to? Yesterday they were saying people only know us on the social media. We have no foothold on the ground. But they have the capability to dislodge a government which has 224 seats of 300. But when it comes to fighting elections, they are nobody. हमें कोई नहीं जानता. हम भैया हमें जरा seat दे दो. Give us money to fight elections. This is the real game. The Hindus of Bangladesh are in dire need of our support. 2 options: Hindu Desh or open the border before you exhaust all your means. But whatever you have to do it pretty fast. Once it becomes Afghanistan, the slaughter will happen, nothing will be left. Then there'll be something called Hindu Kush. When I first looked at the Hindu Kush, I thought, bhai kuch ghar wali baat hai. I took the meaning, it means the slaughtering ground of Hindus. The Hindu Kush mountain ranges where Hindus were slaughtered in millions. We want another name in Bengali for that. We are looking forward to that day, and at that name, which will come someday in the dictionary, and we might feel, looking at it conceptually, it's big, but when we go into the dictionary of it, that is what will happen. And if we let it happen, all the chota mota jihadis around, they will get emboldened. They will say कि भाई गरजने वाले बालक बरसते नहीं है.
Yes.
If you have power, hit and show your power, dismantle the enemy, let it be Yunus or anybody. मैं कहता हूँ भारतीय सेना को आदेश दोगे 48 घंटे में इसकी गर्दन पकड़ के कलकत्ता ले आएंगे. Just tell them to go and get him. We will get him in 48 hours. That is what we can do. But what are we waiting on? Another genocide to happen? Another, this kind of a direct action day to happen? We have seen the history, and the community never learns from history. The history tends to repeat. That's an unfortunate fact.
All right. On that note, unfortunately, I have completely run out of time, but this is obviously a topic that requires us to go into many more details, and we will as we have been. We will continue to talk about Bangladesh until we see some change. On that note, viewers, a very short break.